yesterday, where basically going up to the wedding, they were at Windsor Castle for a menu tasting, and Meghan wound up having a really tense exchange with one of the members of the royal staff and kind of blew up on them because they made a dish. She wanted them to make a total vegan dish, and she could have sworn that she tasted eggs in this dish, and she was berating the staffer, saying that she could taste egg, and apparently got so out of control that the Queen had to walk in and calm her down.
Modest and easygoing, that was Queen Elizabeth's public image. But behind closed doors, she had a line, and nobody crossed it. Here are 15 times Queen Elizabeth put Meghan Markle in her place, and you do not want to miss number 12. That's where the Queen made it crystal clear she wasn't taking nonsense from anyone. With the royal wedding on the horizon, Meghan visited Windsor Castle for a menu tasting. She wanted everything flawless for her Hollywood crowd, so she was all the way in on every detail. Then, things got messy. She tasted a dish she thought was vegan. Turns out it had egg in it. That did not go over well. Not even a little bit. Meghan went straight at the catering staff member responsible, and the whole thing blew up fast. The staff member tried to keep it cool and explain herself, but Meghan, she was loud, heated, and not holding back, letting her frustration fly at full volume. Then Queen Elizabeth walked in. Without missing a beat, the Queen looked at Meghan and said straight to her face, "Meghan, in this family..."
The reason this happened was after the wedding, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had a largely vegan menu. On the plan of the wedding, Meghan Markle was angry at the caterer for putting some egg in a soup that was supposed to be vegan. Where Meghan Markle acted a little bit too angry and said, "Do you even know what vegan is?" Which, seeing that, angered Queen Elizabeth, who's worked with that catering staff for years. It was overheard that Queen Elizabeth was angry with Meghan Markle and told her, "We don't talk to staff like that."
We don't speak to people like that. No yelling, no back and forth. Just one clean, ice-cold shutdown from the most powerful woman in the room. At that point, Meghan was still trying to figure out how royal life worked, and she just got a very direct lesson. Meghan clearly didn't see that coming, and just like that, whatever image she was building took a serious hit, because when the Queen was displeased, she didn't send letters or make phone calls. She showed up in person. Royal historian Hugo Vickers, a man who met the Queen over 40 times and knows the inner world of the palace well, reported that Meghan was rude to one of the undergardeners who was simply doing his job. The head gardener witnessed it, and while he was clearly not happy about it, he knew stepping in directly would only make things worse. So he went straight to the Queen. Now here's where it gets real. Instead of sending a message or summoning Meghan to her, the Queen briefed her driver, got in the car, and drove over to handle it herself, face to face. When she arrived, she looked at Meghan and said plainly, "You cannot be rude to staff. No warning, no second chances." Just the Queen pulling up and putting things in order. Then came the tiara situation, and this one really raised eyebrows. The Queen has a long tradition of letting new brides choose a tiara from her personal collection. But when Meghan asked for it to be sent over so her hairdresser could practice with it ahead of the wedding, the Queen shut it down fast.
And apparently at this point, suddenly the Queen walked in and said, "Meghan, in this family, we don't speak to people like that." And that was a sign of the tensions. Meghan was an actress. She's probably used to speaking to staff in quite an abrupt way. But in the royal family, servants, they're almost part of the family. In some cases, like Queen's right-hand woman, Angela Kelly, they're almost like a sister or a daughter to Her Majesty.
One of her aides revealed the Queen said directly, "It is not a toy." What made it even more striking? Kate Middleton had practiced with a plastic tiara before her own wedding, and nobody had a problem with that. The tiara drama wasn't done yet. Not even close. According to royal biographer Robert Lacey, Harry reportedly declared, "What Meghan wants, Meghan gets." Bold words. But the Queen was not having it. She fired back with a response that left no room for debate, saying firmly, "Meghan cannot have whatever she wants. She gets the tiara I give her." Harry had no choice but to fall back and adjust. One sentence. Situation closed. But the biggest moment of all came when Harry and Meghan decided to step back from royal life. They pushed for a half-in, half-out arrangement, staying senior royals while building their own careers and income on the side.
He was in London, and he actually, there was a showdown with Angela Kelly, and it was get it here now.
The Queen called a crisis summit at Sandringham in January 2020, sat everyone down, and when it was all said and done, she delivered her verdict like a judge closing a case. No halfway roll. Either in or out. Full stop. The Queen didn't negotiate, she ruled. And Harry is still out here trying to make that half-in, half-out dream work. But King Charles remembers exactly what Queen Elizabeth said, and he has shut it down too. Then came a moment that spoke volumes without a single word being said. During the Queen's 2019 Christmas address, family photos were displayed in the drawing room. William and Catherine, Charles and Camilla, Prince Philip, and a classic black and white image of George VI, Harry, Meghan, and their newborn Archie, nowhere to be seen.
Chose her tiara, and when she was having her hair rehearsal, if you like, when they were sort of going through the motions, with her hairdresser bought a £6 plastic tiara from Accessorize, because frankly it doesn't really matter, you know.
Not one photo. Palace insiders explained the photos simply represented the direct line of succession, but the Sussexes reportedly took it as a personal slight anyway. Then came one of the most talked about moments surrounding the Queen's final hours. As the family rushed to Balmoral, Prince Charles reportedly made it clear that Harry would be travelling alone. A Sussex spokesperson initially said the couple would arrive together, but Meghan quietly dropped out at the last minute. Royal correspondent Katie Nicholl confirmed that Meghan was not invited to be there for that solemn, private family moment. Even before the royal exit, things were already getting icy. The couple reportedly stopped receiving invitations to royal dinners, not because of one big blow-up, but because of repeated protocol breaches piling up quietly. One tradition they broke? The long-standing rule of separating couples at dinner tables. Meghan reportedly dismissed it as outdated.
You served your purpose, she moved on to the next. I think that's what she's like. Meghan gets what Meghan wants. Again, not nice commentary from a former friend.
Public displays of affection at formal events also made guests visibly uncomfortable. The Queen's response? She simply stopped sending invitations. No confrontation, no drama, just silence. Behind the scenes, the wedding planning was also causing tension. Harry wrote to Lady Elizabeth Anson, suggesting the Queen was perfectly happy with how things were going. But when Anson spoke to the Queen directly, the Queen made it clear she was not happy at all. Too dignified to make a public scene, she let the truth come out through her own trusted channels. Then there was the veil. Meghan, a divorcee, insisted on wearing a traditional white wedding veil, something other royal divorcees like Camilla and Princess Anne had chosen not to do. The Queen privately disagreed, but Meghan pushed forward and changed how things had always been done. Meghan kept the details of her wedding dress completely under wraps, even from the Queen herself. The Queen's disapproval was obvious, but she showed up to that wedding out of pure duty as the royal matriarch. Her grandson was getting married, and the show had to go on.
King Charles has said, no, absolutely not. There is no route for Harry to embrace a half-in, half-out royal duty situation, as multiple outlets in the UK, from the Times of London to the Daily Mail, are all stating the same thing. The half-in, half-out scenario that Harry's team seems to be floating is just simply not the future of Harry's relationship with the family.
Then came the fashion moment that had the palace quietly fuming. During a visit to Morocco in 2019, Meghan stepped out in a £60,000 Dior dress. The Queen reportedly read about the price tag in the press, and she was not impressed. She made sure Meghan knew that kind of choice was a serious misstep. And let's not forget, this is a woman who recycled her own outfits for decades and used ration coupons for her own wedding dress. To her, Meghan's move was tone-deaf and completely out of step with royal expectations. And to top it all off, the dress didn't even look right on her. During the Queen's birthday celebration came another very public boundary. The Queen announced that only working royals would appear on the balcony, And just like that, Harry and Meghan were out. Meghan had reportedly expected to be up there, and the exclusion sent a message louder than any official statement ever could. After the royal exit, the Queen went even further. She refused to let Harry and Meghan use the Sussex royal brand for any commercial purpose, full stop. The couple had already poured tens of thousands of pounds into building that brand. Didn't matter.
But a new source has told The Sun that Prince Harry ditched a dinner with Charles and William on the day the Queen died. The Duke of Sussex reportedly insisted that his wife Meghan join the family for dinner at Balmoral, but the now King Charles III said it wasn't appropriate.
The ruling was clear: no official duties, no royal branding. The palace drew the line, and it did not move. The Queen wasn't done making her authority known, not even close. After Harry and Meghan's departure, she moved swiftly and decisively, reassigning every honorary military role tied to working royal status. In February 2020, Harry lost his position as Captain General of the Royal Marines, a prestigious role that Prince Philip had held with pride for over 64 years. His honorary Air Force Commandant title? Gone. His Commodore-in-Chief appointment? Stripped away too. And just like that, in one clean administrative move, the palace made its position crystal clear. What made this hit even harder was the context behind those roles. Harry hadn't just been handed these titles because of his last name. He had earned them through blood, sweat, and real sacrifice. A full decade of active military service, 2 tours in Afghanistan. He flew Apache helicopters in some of the most dangerous combat zones on the planet. He wasn't a ceremonial soldier, he was the real deal. And yet, when he chose to step away from royal duties, the Queen made it plain that the privileges attached to those duties would not be following him out the door. Royal privilege is built on service, not sentiment, not nostalgia, not personal loyalty.
Quite interesting that the book claims that the Queen disapproved most strongly of Meghan's brilliant white wedding dress, which the Queen is alleged to have said was flamboyantly virginal for a divorcee who'd been married for a couple of years.
Service. Full stop. Many royal watchers were stunned by how quickly and completely the roles were reassigned. There was no grace period, no transition arrangement, no quiet behind-the-scenes negotiation. The decision came down swiftly, and it sent a message that echoed far beyond military titles. It told the world, and Harry and Meghan specifically, that the institution of the monarchy operates on its own terms, and no individual, no matter how beloved or high-profile, gets to rewrite those terms on their way out. And this wasn't the first time the palace had used quiet, calculated moves to signal a shift in power. Long before the formal stepping back, there were signs that the relationship between the Sussexes and the institution was becoming strained in ways that couldn't simply be patched over with a good PR strategy. The military title stripping was simply the most visible and official confirmation of something that had been building for a long time. Then came the moment that the entire world was watching the final public appearance as senior working royals. Commonwealth Day, March 9th, 2020.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Prince Andrew have been snubbed from the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Palace balcony ceremony this June. Queen Elizabeth is limiting invitations for the appearance to working royals.
On paper, it was a routine ceremonial event, but inside the walls of Westminster Abbey that day, every single detail had been carefully calculated. The palace is an expert at communicating through protocol, and on that day, the message written into the seating arrangements and the order of procession was loud enough for anyone paying attention to hear. In previous years, Harry and Meghan had walked through Westminster Abbey as part of the royal procession alongside the Queen, alongside William and Kate, fully integrated into the visible fabric of the working royal family. It was the kind of moment that said, without words, these people belong here. But on March 9th, 2020, that picture changed completely. Instead of walking in with the family, Harry and Meghan were quietly ushered to their seats before the Queen even arrived. They were already sitting down when the official procession began, already sidelined before the ceremony even started. The traditional procession with William and Kate was adjusted too, in ways that made the Sussexes' reduced standing impossible for anyone in that abbey or watching on television around the world to miss. There was no dramatic announcement, no public statement explaining the change, just a quietly reorganized order of service that spoke volumes. That is the monarchy operating at its most sophisticated level.
According to the palace, although Harry and Meghan will continue to be the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, the couple will no longer use their royal titles. They won't receive any public funds for royal duties, and for Army veteran Harry, he'll have to let go of his royal military patronage.
A single shift in a seating plan carrying the weight of an entire institutional verdict. There was no farewell speech prepared for Harry and Meghan, no ceremony marking the end of their time as senior royals, no commemorative moment acknowledging the years of service Harry in particular had given to the crown. The Queen simply adjusted the order of service and let the world draw its own conclusions. And draw conclusions the world absolutely did. Cameras picked up every awkward glance, every shift in body language, every moment of visible tension between the two couples. The images from that day told a story that no press release could have matched. Some royal commentators pointed out that this approach, letting actions speak instead of words, was entirely consistent with how the Queen had always operated. Throughout her 7-decade reign, she had navigated political crises, family scandals, public controversies, and constitutional challenges without ever losing her composure or resorting to public confrontation. She didn't need to. She had something far more powerful than words. She had authority, and she knew exactly how to use it.
Prince Harry will continue his brief Asian tour despite being stripped of a significant title. The UK royal made his first public appearance since the coronation, attending a conference in Tokyo. The event came hours after an apparent demotion.
That quiet, unshakable authority had been on display throughout the entire saga with Harry and Meghan. From the early days of Meghan's arrival into the royal family, through the mounting tensions over protocol and public behaviour, all the way to the Sandringham Summit and beyond, the Queen had consistently demonstrated that she was in control, even when the situation around her felt anything but controlled. She absorbed the chaos, made her decisions, and implemented them without drama. That is what total authority looks like. It never needs to raise its voice. But let's go deeper, because the story of the Queen putting her foot down doesn't end with a seating chart at Westminster Abbey. The broader picture of how she handled the Sussex situation reveals a masterclass in institutional power that went far beyond any single incident or confrontation. Consider the Sussex royal brand situation. When Harry and Meghan announced their intention to step back from royal duties, one of their key plans was to build an independent financial foundation using the Sussex royal name. They had invested tens of thousands of pounds into developing that brand, the website, the infrastructure, the public identity built around it. It represented their vision for a new kind of royal life, one where they could operate semi-independently while still carrying the weight and recognition of their royal connection. The Queen shut it down completely. Her ruling was simple and non-negotiable. If they were not carrying out official royal duties, they could not market themselves using a brand built on monarchical association. The Sussex royal name was gone, just like that. And with it went a significant chunk of the financial strategy Harry and Meghan had been building toward. It wasn't personal, at least not officially. It was institutional. But the effect was the same, a very clear demonstration that the crown controls its own image and nobody walks away from royal service while keeping royal branding in their back pocket. This decision also revealed something important about how the Queen viewed the relationship between privilege and responsibility. Throughout her reign, she had held firmly to the principle that royal status comes with obligations, not just benefits. You don't get the title, the platform, and the global recognition, while simultaneously opting out of the duties that give those things meaning. That was the line Harry and Meghan had tried to straddle with their half-in, half-out proposal, and the Queen had made it unambiguously clear that no such arrangement existed within her monarchy. The Sandringham Summit itself deserves a closer look, because it remains one of the most extraordinary moments in modern royal history. In January 2020, with the Sussex crisis reaching a boiling point, the Queen called together the key players herself, Prince Charles, Prince William, and Prince Harry for direct talks at her private Sandringham estate. It was described by some as a crisis meeting, by others as a damage control session, but what it really was a queen exercising complete institutional authority over a situation that had the potential to destabilize the monarchy at a very sensitive moment. The discussions were reportedly intense. Harry came in with his proposal for a new kind of royal role, one that would allow him and Meghan to maintain some connection to the institution while building their independent life. It sounded reasonable to some outside observers. But the Queen had been running this institution longer than most people had been alive, and she understood something Harry perhaps hadn't fully grasped. There is no such thing as a part-time monarchy. You cannot be half a working royal any more than you can be half a head of state. When the talks concluded, the Queen delivered her verdict clearly and without ambiguity. No halfway roll was possible. The choice was in or out, and she followed that verdict with a statement that was notably warm in tone, but absolutely firm in substance, expressing her love for Harry and Meghan while making the institutional position completely clear. That balanced personal warmth wrapped around institutional steel was pure Queen Elizabeth. She could separate the personal from the professional in a way that very few people in any walk of life are capable of. What followed after the Sandringham Summit was equally revealing. Harry and Meghan moved to North America, built their media partnerships, gave their headline-grabbing interviews, and pursued the independent life they had envisioned. But every time Harry attempted to revisit the question of a more connected relationship with the royal family, every time the half-in, half-out idea resurfaced in some new form, he found the door firmly closed. King Charles, who succeeded the Queen, has held the same line. Because the Queen set the precedent, and the institution remembered it even after she was gone. The ripple effects of the Queen's handling of the Sussex situation extended well beyond the family itself. The way she managed the crisis sent a clear message to the watching world about the nature of the British monarchy, that it is an institution built on continuity, tradition, and an unbroken chain of obligation that no individual personality, however compelling or popular, can simply opt out of on their own terms. Meghan and Harry had global star power, massive public sympathy in certain quarters, and a media platform that most public figures could only dream of. And yet, when they went up against the quiet, immovable authority of Queen Elizabeth, the institution won. That's not to say the Queen was without compassion in how she handled things. Multiple sources close to the palace have noted that she genuinely cared about Harry's well-being and felt the pain of the family fracture deeply. But compassion and authority are not mutually exclusive, and the Queen had spent 7 decades proving that. She could feel the weight of a situation personally while still handling it institutionally. That is an extraordinarily rare quality, and it was perhaps never more clearly on display than during the Sussex years. Look also at the way she handled the Commonwealth Day appearance itself, that final public outing. The Queen could have engineered a very different kind of farewell. She could have allowed Harry and Meghan a dignified, integrated final appearance that smoothed over the tensions and sent the couple off on a warmer note publicly. She chose not to. The adjusted seating, the reorganized procession, the deliberate visual separation from the working royal family, these were choices, deliberate, carefully considered choices that sent a specific message. The Queen was not interested in managing public perception at the expense of institutional clarity. If Harry and Meghan were stepping back, the world would see exactly what that looked like in real time. And then there's the matter of Balmoral, the Queen's final days. As her health declined and the family gathered at her Scottish estate, the guest list itself became a statement. Harry travelled without Meghan. Royal correspondent Katie Nicholl confirmed that Meghan had not been included in that intimate, solemn gathering. Even in the Queen's final hours, the boundaries that had been established were maintained. The inner circle of the monarchy remained exactly that, an inner circle. And Meghan, despite being Harry's wife and the mother of 2 of the Queen's great-grandchildren, was on the outside of it. For many observers, that moment carried more weight than any of the more public confrontations or protocol disputes, because it happened at the most human, most vulnerable moment possible, a family saying goodbye to its matriarch. And even then, the institutional lines held firm. That tells you everything you need to know about how seriously the Queen took the distinction between those who were fully committed to royal life and those who had chosen a different path. What legacy does all of this leave behind? The Queen's handling of the Sussex situation will be studied and debated for years to come. Some will argue she was too rigid, too bound by tradition, too unwilling to adapt the institution to the realities of the modern world. Others will say she was exactly right, that the monarchy's survival depends on precisely the kind of principled, non-negotiable stance she demonstrated throughout the entire episode. Both arguments have merit, and the full verdict of history will take time to arrive. But what is beyond dispute is this Queen Elizabeth II was not a passive figurehead. She was not a ceremonial symbol who smiled for photographs and left the real decisions to others. She was an active, engaged, deeply authoritative head of an ancient institution, and she proved it repeatedly throughout the Sussex saga. From the quiet dressing down over staff treatment, to the Tiara ruling, to the Sandringham Summit verdict, to the military title strippings, to the Sussex royal brand shutdown, to the final Commonwealth Day choreography, every move she made was deliberate, measured, and effective. She never lost her composure. She never descended into public argument or drama. She never gave the tabloids a quote they could use against her. She simply exercised her authority consistently and completely and let the results speak for themselves. That is a level of institutional discipline that is almost impossible to teach. It can only be lived over decades of practice in the most scrutinized role on the planet. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all from this entire chapter of royal history. Real authority doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't need headlines or viral moments or dramatic confrontations. It operates through structure, through protocol, through the quiet but unmistakable weight of institutional power. Queen Elizabeth understood that better than almost anyone who has ever lived. And throughout every twist and turn of the Sussex saga, she demonstrated it with a consistency and a clarity that left absolutely no room for misunderstanding. There you have it, the full picture of how Queen Elizabeth drew the line, held the line, and never once flinched. Every moment, every decision, every quietly devastating protocol adjustment told the same story. The crown does not bend, the institution does not negotiate. And the Queen? She never needed to raise her voice to make the whole world listen. Which moment from this entire saga hit the hardest for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to know what you think. And if this had you hooked from start to finish, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you never miss what's coming next.